independent India has a very glorious tradition of communitarian movements, people's movements for ecological and socio-economic justice. So I will be speaking about some of these movements that I've been associated with in all these years. I've been working for 4 decades now. And before I do that, I will just contextualize these movements by detailing the reality of the domination by centralized states and markets. That is that is the current scenario, and especially the neo-imperial character of the global economy, in global political economy in which we now, both you and I, everybody is part of. Just to say something about myself, I am an anarchist. But in today's world, it's anarchists, as you know, they believe in community, no state, no market. In small communities, you have to live no property and things like that. Since you're sociologists, you must be aware of that. But as I said, the present situation is such, it's a new imperial situation where there are very strong state and market influences. So there is a small organization that I have mentioned here, Mahila Jagat Lihaaz Samiti, which means an organization. Samiti is society for women, and Jagat is environment. Respect for women and environment. That's the society through which we work. You have to have some kind of a registered society through which you have to work. So that is it. That is the society through which we work. And here on the side, you can see a photo of some of the women who are protecting a forest. As I will come to you, one of the major areas in which we work is protecting forests, and why we do that and what is the importance, that I will come to later. So let us begin the lecture. First, as I said, the current institutional structure. We are the nature. Nature is there, and we Homo sapiens are a very small part of that nature, that vast nature. But because of various reasons that I'll detail in the next slide, now we dominate even nature, and we do it mainly through the two institutions, the state and the market, two very powerful centralized institutions, and they are hierarchical. The structure of both these institutions, state and the market, they are hierarchical. There are some people on top, plutocracy, who controls both of these, and then the rest of us are all there in various parts of this whole system. And then there is the community. There are still communities. Largely, people are organized in small communities, which are, of course, powerless in this whole system mostly. But as I said, as an anarchist, I want a situation where, that is why, even though in reality state and market are very powerful, I have put them small, and I have put community as large, because that is what I want should be the arrangement of the whole system, whole world of Homo sapiens. We in society, we should live in communities, and the characteristic of community is collective action, which I will come later. I will define what exactly is community action and collective action. But the thing is that everybody works together. There is no hierarchy there. So these are the two things that are opposed. One is the hierarchical action from state and market, which controls both nature and humanity. And on the other side, there is this community. There are these small communities which work on collective action. There are many examples of this throughout the world, and they are trying to reverse this thing that has been taking place all these years. So now I'll come to this. This is the timeline of development. I'll just go through it quickly. As you are students of sociology, you must know most of this, but I'll just go so that it's in the back of our mind before we go into actual work that we are doing. So Homo sapiens evolved around 300,000 years before. This is all timeline, years before present. I put it as years before present. So this is we came in as a species 300,000 years ago, and then around 200,000 years ago we developed tools. The tools for hunting and things like that. So even before that, we lived in communities, these small communities, but they were not much different from herds of animals, actually. So once we developed tools, we began to get more organized in a community form. That is why I have said that 200,000 years or so before we got community. Then the next development is patriarchy. It's all controversial as to when exactly patriarchy came in. But some you can all search this. I have not given any references because you can all these are all things that have happened. There are a lot of researchers who have researched all this. So if you research on the net, you will find what I'm saying. You will find various literature supporting what I'm saying. So about 100,000 years ago, see, human beings are what is called altricial. This term altricial, it means that our babies, the babies that are born, they are helpless when they are born. And in the case of humans, it is because of two reasons. One is because we are bipedal, we walk upright. So the pelvis has got restricted from what it was before when we used to walk on four arms and legs. And the second thing is that due to this development of community and development of various tools and things, the human brain began expanding. And so when the baby is born, it can't get out of the pelvis of that vagina, that pelvic gap that is there. If the brain size is more, so it comes out with a smaller brain size, and then it is helpless. So that term for that is altricial. And if since it's helpless, it has to for 1, 2 years, 3 years after being born, it has to be taken care of, and that because of the nature of the thing, it has to be with the mother. Women have to mostly take care of the baby because at that time the situation was that you have to go out for hunting and things like that, and that is crucial. If you don't do that, then the human race won't survive, and you have to continuously produce babies also because most of the babies don't survive in this kind of a situation. So women got restricted to producing babies and taking care of them. So that is how they got slowly domesticated. There's a lot of literature on that. There's some debate as to when that took place, but that did take place, and I have put it as 100,000 as the time for that. It might be a little later or so. The next is the Neolithic Revolution, where agriculture and pastoralism come in. And that is important because you have, this contingency of human existence is not there anymore. You don't have to depend on going out, gathering fruits and gathering food or hunting for food. You can produce it and store it. So that is either through agricultural activities or through pastoralism. You have herds of animals and things like that. So then that situation comes where you have a surplus that you have, which you can then use to save your time and for various other development activities. Once you have a surplus, and first it's a communitarian surplus, and then very soon it becomes private property. Some people have more of that surplus, some people have less. So you have private property, and the class division comes in. First you had the patriarchal division. Now the class division comes in, which intensifies the patriarchal division. You have because that private property, how it is going to be inherited. So then before there was no marriage. People used to just intermingle with each other, and the community used to take care of the kids and all that. But when private property comes in, then the question arises that how is that private property going to be given to the next generation? And so then marriage comes in to make sure that the private property goes to whoever is their heirlings and things like that. So then marriage and the patriarchy gets more intensified. Then after that state, when there is a lot of private property and a lot of people fighting with each other, then you need to have a state to regulate that whole thing, so that this development of private property takes place in a proper way as the society and all that. So the state comes in, and then the dates are here. These are all very rough dates because there's not much evidence. But whatever this is based on whatever research that anthropologists have done, these dates are there. The timeline is there on the side. And then after state, market, there's barter. Once you have private property, there will be barter. But market means you have to have it. That can take place, especially markets, international markets. I mean, not nation. There were no nations, but from one region to another region, if there's to be trade and all that, then that has to their need for currency, and the currency can come only after the state. So once the state comes, then it has currency, and then that currency facilitates market and trade. So that comes just after the state formation. You have market. Then this goes on for a long time, and then the modern era starts, where you have gunpowder. Gunpowder is discovered, but initially when it is discovered, that gunpowder is not very effective. And then in around 600 years from now, the bonding processes develop, which makes it effective. I mean, you can use that gunpowder to fire cannons and firearms and things like that more effectively. And so then that starts the whole new era, where it's not just trade. Now you can have a situation where you can control other kingdoms. There were empires before, but now it becomes much more much easier to have vast empires with a lot of you have trade also on one side. You have these big ships, and then they have cannons, and then you can control the trade, and that leads to the next, what is known as the Columbian encounter. Columbus going and finding America. I mean, just going there and getting to know the Caribbean and all that. So that is known as the Columbian encounter, which starts the imperial period. From after that, one of these European countries, they go and control America, then Africa, then Asia, and like that. All these other continents are controlled by the European countries, and the imperialism starts. And then that leads to a huge flow of money into Europe, and then banking comes in, which is another aspect of development. Because if you want to trade and do commerce on a large scale, you need banking for lending and things like that. So that banking was there from before also, but the modern banking system, where you have where money is created in banking system, it's not dependent on currency at all. Now you can have various financial instruments and things which broadens the economy. So that banking comes in. That is a crucial thing. So that increases the economic activity, and that then leads to the industrial revolution, where for the first time you use other energy. Earlier, before the industrial revolution, for development, humans used only their own energy or the energy of the cattle to livestock to do various kinds of things, whatever they wanted to do, whether in agriculture or crafts or whatever. But after the industrial revolution, the new aspect came in, where you can use artificial energy from coal. Initially, it was from coal, and then you use that energy to vastly increase the production, the productivity. If you have just human or livestock energy, you can't produce that much. If you have artificial energy, then you can vastly increase production and then distribution, because travel also increases. You have steamships and rail lines and all those things come in. And then after that comes oil and electricity, which makes it even cheaper. Energy, machines run by oil and from electricity, they are vastly more superior to them that run from by coal. So the productivity increases much more. So that is the huge thing that whole, and it's not very old, just 140 years. Before that, the amount of resources that were being used, that has just gone up exponentially after the discovery of oil and electricity, and engines that can use machines that can use this oil and electricity. Marxist analysis of the capitalist economy. So the basic problem that Marx told us about the capitalist economy is that the production increases a huge amount, and because you are not paying the laborers a dignified wage, they are not able to buy. So there is a situation where there's a huge overproduction crisis. That on the one hand, you are producing a lot of things, and then people are not able to buy, and so there's a market failure kind of situation. So this came up. This used to come up periodically, and it came up, as you all know, in the 1920s. There was this Great Depression, where you have this overproduction crisis and all that. So then after that, the economies, the capitalist economies, they said that you can't have a laissez-faire system where anybody is producing whatever they want and things like that, and not paying the laborers. They are exploiting the laborers on the one hand, and then producing a huge amount because of this increased productivity, and then there's nobody to buy those things. So then this around 90 years before, after the thing in America, it was the New Deal and various other places, Beveridge and all this in UK. You have this, on the one hand, you have welfareism, that you some of the needs of the laborers or the people in citizens, they are met by the state from taxation. They tax the people who are in a position to pay taxes, or anybody. In fact, if you go to the market, you pay some tax or other when you buy something. So that tax is there. That tax is then redistributed by the state, because the capitalists won't do it. They want to, get as much profit as they can. So the state then taxes those profits, takes that money and redistributes in the form of various welfare activities. It's all these capitalist economies that are there. There's a huge amount of welfare. Various, Scandinavian countries have the highest amount of welfare spending. Even the US, Canada, they have very high amounts of welfare spending and all that. And various education, health, whether it's a dole in case you're not working, or even if you're working, then there are food stamps and things like that. So that is one aspect of the thing that, that creates the demand, or that demand problem that is there. And the other side is state regulation of all markets. This whole thing about free markets, it's a myth. Actually, there are no free markets. Anybody who's a strong player in that market, he's going to control that market. So then the state comes in there and regulates that market. All markets today are regulated everywhere in the world, except for the currency markets. The international currency markets are not regulated, and that is why you have a lot of hanky-panky going on there. But all the other markets, the hanky-panky goes on in each market, every market, but at least that is regulated by the state. So this comes in. So this then stabilizes the whole thing. So you don't have those collapses that you had earlier. Before the 1930s, there were various collapses, and 1920s collapses were the worst. That was the thing. And the other thing that comes in just after this is manipulative advertising. Now, this is very important because advertising is there right from the beginning. There is advertising. Once you have a lot of productivity increases, then you have to sell it. So then you have to advertise those goods to be able to sell them. But because productivity increases a huge amount from the, say, once this oil and electricity comes in, and then they realize that this whole thing of manipulate people, creating needs which are not there, which is started with TV, with television coming in. That also came in the 1930s. About that time, just after the welfare and state regulation thing, television was discovered, and then you can have this kind of manipulative advertising. You must, since you're students of sociology, you must have read all these things, Marshall McLuhan and all these people. He was Canadian, in fact. So all these things are there. This comes in. Then the next great development is computers. I put computers and internet together. Internet is not that old. Internet is just around 30 years from now. But computers and internet. So this is very important, because then this globalizes the whole economy. The globalization of economy takes place once the computers come in. So now it's not restricted. Like I said, the financial markets, they never close. It starts with Japan in the morning, and when Japan is closing, some other market is open somewhere. All these financial, whether it's stock markets or currency markets, and all these markets, they run 24/7 all the time. So capital is moving all over the world all the time, and that process is going on. So that creates a huge system. The whole global economy is connected together, and all the money goes from everywhere. The investment is taking all. That's what I said. That is global, and so that is the neo-imperial part of the thing. I mean, India, for instance, is theoretically it is a nation, independent nation. But all our markets, everything actually is controlled from New York, London, and all these places. Even though we have a few billionaires and things like that, but whatever they decide, how to, what to sell, what to produce, what to buy, that is actually decided by just around 40-50 firms, which are all based in, mostly based in US and Europe. Some are there in Japan and China and all that, but mostly there. And they are the ones who are controlling the economy. So that is what I say is the neo-imperial thing, that actually the global economy is controlled by a very small set of people. And then in 1960, you must have heard of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. She writes this book, which is a seminal book. It says that, all this development that is going on, that is, just devastating the environment. And it starts with that. Rachel Carson's, that's the seminal book from which environmentalism actually starts in a scientific and organized way. And since then, you have had conferences and things like that. So now that is there. That all this development that has taken place, that has led to a situation where the environment is affected in various ways and in very serious ways, which you all know. And not only environment, the society also. So something there's one term called precariat, that most of us have precarious livelihoods now. Earlier, there was a situation where you could spend the whole life in one place, in one job, or doing one thing like that. But that is not seen anymore. Because of this, computers and internet have been able to outsource the whole economy. So there is nothing, nobody's livelihood is guaranteed now. So every time, every day, you hear that somebody is being laid off somewhere, and cost cutting is taking place, and all this kind of thing. So we are all part of the precariat. A few people are there who are controlling the whole world, and rest of us, whether you are in Canada or whether, like me, I am in India, most of the people, 99% of the people, are in precarious situations, not in control of their lives in any way, mostly. So that is the situation that has been created. On the one hand, you have an ecological crisis, a serious ecological crisis, and we might get into extinction. We have already had 5 or 6 extinctions before in the history of the earth, and we are heading towards another ecological extinction. That is one side. And the other is that, as socio-economically also, there's this huge situation where most of the people are precarious, not in control of their lives. So this is the context in which we are working. From now on, whatever I'll say, I'll talk about my work. So what is the solution to this? The work that we do here. What is the solution? As I said, as an anarchist, my solution is that we have to have communitarian control over our lives. Community, or what we do, our livelihoods and the environment, what is to be done, that has to be decided at the community, at the grassroots level. So I have said that is communitarian restorative action. You have to take restorative action, whether it's in the livelihoods front, how you are organizing yourself as a socio-economy, and the ecology. How do you protect the environment? So what are the work we do? Now I'm concentrating on the work we do. One organization with which a few organizations with which I am associated here. First is afforestation. This doesn't need to be explained at all. That this is the best way to combat climate change. That you have more forests over there, all over the place. And this is one work we do. And the people I work with, they are the Bhil Adivasis. In India, they are called Adivasis, indigenous people. You have some in Canada also, and they're in the news because there's a lot of problem going on with them. So similarly, we have in India around 8% of the population are indigenous people, who we call Adivasis here. Now, I work with one of them, which is the largest nation of indigenous. Here they are called tribes. They're the largest tribe. They're the Bhil tribe, which is the largest tribe in India. So I work with some part of those people. I stay in Madhya Pradesh, so I work with the Bhils in Madhya Pradesh, and they have a custom called dhas. They term the custom dhas, which is basically coming together. All the people come together and they pool. I will talk about more of that later when I analyze their social structure. But they come together and they work. If somebody has to build a house, for instance, then or everybody, because they don't have money to pay labor wages and things like that. So all the people in that community, they will come and help and build that house. Or if it's some agricultural activity, the sustainable agriculture is organic agriculture is very labor intensive. Requires a lot of labor. So that labor, one family can't, put in all that labor. So all the families come together. So on one day they'll work on one person's land, another day another person's land, like that. So here in our area where we have worked in various villages, around 50-60 villages, we have this communitarian afforestation. People get together. That first photo that I showed of women, protecting the forest. So that is part of the whole culture. This whole culture has been strengthened. It was decaying because of this intrusion of the state and the market, but we managed to, restore that culture, and so afforestation is done with that. Then next is soil and water conservation. So that is extremely important because especially in hilly areas where we work. These are the Vindhya ranges. There's one river called Narmada. and we mostly work in and around that river. There are hill ranges on both sides of the Narmada River, and we work on that, work in those areas. So it's extremely important to conserve soil and water. So there are various ways of doing that. And once again, the main thing is that everybody, because it is labor intensive, everybody has to come together. So you can see the photo on the side. These people, they are basically digging a well and to access water on a very high hilltop, and then that mud that is coming out, they are using it to build bunds to stop soil and water getting eroded. Next is renewable energy. See, energy is required. So we have reached a stage of development we can't go back. A lot of people say that you're talking about going back, not using artificial energy. So that is not an option. We have to use energy, but that energy can be from renewable sources. So I won't go into the details of that because that is a separate subject altogether. We do a lot of work on that. In fact, this house that I'm talking to you from, it is totally renewable energy. We have solar energy on which this house runs. So that is just one option. There are various other options. So that is one aspect. Again, there are some of these options in which, like for instance, incineration of biomass to produce energy and all that, that requires community action. You can't do it alone. So once again, community has to come in. Next, this is the most important work that we do. My wife actually does it. Sustainable agriculture. And this is the whole thing, that agriculture has been mechanized. That is a different story altogether. It's a very long story. If I get an opportunity, I will talk about sometime later. But the thing is that the agriculture throughout the world is devastated, and it is supported by the state. Whatever chemical agriculture, mechanized agriculture that is going on, everywhere in every country, it is supported by the state. I don't have the data for Canada, but I do have that for the USA. And in the USA, 20% of the agricultural GDP is a subsidy from the American government, without which the whole of agriculture will collapse in the US. So, and that subsidy goes to everybody who is farming. For instance, the USA, the largest individual farmer is Bill Gates. I don't know whether you know this, but this is the fact that Bill Gates has 250,000 acres of land on which farming is going on, and he gets subsidized by the state for the farming part, because that farming, if he wants to do it on his own, it's a loss making proposition. And all the big corporations like Cargill and all that, who own millions of acres of land, they also at the farm gate, they get subsidy, that 20% subsidy. So this is the situation that that chemical agriculture that is there. It is not economically viable. It has to be supported with state subsidy. And on the other hand, it is highly degrading for the ecology. It's very, very destructive of the ecology, and it's poisoning our food. Whatever food you eat, whatever food you are eating from the market, that is all present in various ways. Despite all these regulations and things, and that you are eating carcinogens or drinking carcinogens all the time. So as I said, that's a big long story that we can do some other time. So this is something that we work on. We of course we work on very small farms and things. We have a demonstration farm of our own on which we work. Apart from that, there are various farmers who are associated with us. We are on the margins. We also have to provide a subsidy, because that chemical agriculture is being provided a subsidy. So if you ask a farmer to do organic farming without providing subsidy, it's not possible. The government in India doesn't do anything. Zilch, basically. Nothing. No support. Just talk. They will say that yes, there should be organic agriculture, but there is no subsidy. Very minimal. So the work we do, we crowdfund various, we gather funds from various places, and we help these farmers. We tell them that at least for your own consumption, you try and do sustainable organic agriculture with compost. It's very labor intensive. That is the problem with this. That is labor intensive. So you need a lot of subsidy there. Then there's sustainable construction. The cement, steel, and sand. These are the things that are used in India in many places. Concrete and all that. These are highly to produce cement. A lot of energy is required, and a lot of mining has to be done. Similarly for steel, and then sand destroys rivers. So all the construction in India mostly it's all these materials. So to do without that, use the traditional bamboo, earth, and wood and things like that. So that also we do. We have just made a major construction of. We run a school also. I'll come to that later. and that school required some building. So we have just completed in 3 months construction with just bamboo and things. So it's first of all, it costs much less. Economic cost is less, and secondly, ecologically it is much better than using steel and all these things. Then there is sustainable water supply and sanitation. So you have these big cities which have so much population, and then the water supply comes from, in India. I'm talking about India now. The water supply comes from a very long distance, because those cities, they themselves don't have enough water. That is a big cost. And then that water becomes used water. After it's used, it becomes dirty water, and that has to be treated. That is another big cost. Now, in the US or Canada, those costs are met by the people who are using it, because they have the money to pay for those costs. Though it's getting more and more difficult. That again is another long story. Even in the US and Canada, now municipalities, urban local governments are finding it difficult to meet all these costs, because they're finding it difficult to recover. But even then, they do it. But in India, of course, we are so poor, it's not possible. So actually, the it's all running at a loss, and it's a huge problem in India, supplying water and then treating it, and so that it doesn't pollute the environment. So there also we try to do something. Like, for instance, this house, once again I'm talking to you, it has a totally communitarian in situ system. So we access our water from the ground, we recharge all the water and treat all our used water, and that also we recycle and use, like for flushing toilets and all that. We use the used water, we treat it and flush it down once again, because it's a time to use costly potable water to flush toilets. So all these things are there. Then after that, holistic, that I said, education. The education system itself is geared to producing all these engineers and things, and whatever, managers and finance managers. You see all these things. The people who get the most paid today in the world are those who are at the heading hedge funds and banks and things like that. And they have no concern at all for the ecology or for the human society. Their only concern is earning profits, and then the whole education system is also geared to that, producing people who can do that. So the kind of work that needs to be done, but in my opinion, this is the kind of work that should be done. There are very few people. Even I was not taught to do this work that I'm telling you about. I was taught to be an engineer and a manager and things like that. I rejected that and came in. But that is not generally possible. If a system, you will get one or two, odd people like me, but most people will be part of that system. So this education itself must change. I don't know whether you have, as sociologists, you should have heard of a community called the Amish in USA. So they still live according to, they're a religious sect basically, some religious Christian sect. But their principle is that they will live like without the use of electrical energy and things like that, and as minimal as possible, and living with livestock energy and things, and agricultural livelihood. So they don't teach their children more than class 8 standard, just school. They say that is enough to run our system. So I mean, it's not necessary to be that kind of radical like the Amish are. But basically, the thing is that you have to have a more just socioeconomic and ecological system, a system that is fair to the people and also fair to the nature. Instead of extracting like we are doing now. And then for that you need a different kind of education altogether. So we try to do that. We run a school in which we try to do that. Obviously, we are very small, the marginal people. But anyway, that is also there. So when I talk about restorative action, and then there's holistic health. There are a lot of things going on in the name of health. Once again, manipulative advertising and things like that. Most of the stuff that is happening, is not actually necessary. If you live a better lifestyle, eat organic food, and do things, you can avoid all these kind of things. At least not as much is going on. So that is another aspect that is there, that needs to be worked on. So this is it. Now, as I said, that all this requires community to act together, and there is a term for that called collective action. And you must have heard of this lady, Elinor Ostrom, Dr. Elinor Ostrom. She's expired now, but she got the 2008 Nobel Prize for economics. But she's not an economist; she's a political economist. But her work is in this, that if you want collective action, then what do you need to do? So she has codified that the design principles for collective action. That because generally society is an extractive thing, everybody is acting individually according to market demands, and market or state says something like that. In that kind of a situation, if you want to save the environment, and if you want to have a community based system of livelihoods, then you need collective action. And she has given a very important principles. So I'll just briefly go through all those principles. First is group boundaries are clearly defined. The community, what is their natural resource base? That base in which they want to do all those things that I told you about: afforestation, soil and water conservation, and education, health, and all that. They must have a boundary within which that has to be done. Which can't be encroached by others. So that is one important thing. That community must have the power to secure its boundaries. That is the first thing. Wasn't it going on? Next, when you have this collective property, now it's a common property. Now, so how do you use that common property? So that those use there must be some rules that are there for using that. Some common property is there that you have conserved. Now you have to use it for your development work. How you are going to use that? So that has to be matched to the needs and conditions of that area. So what it will be different. It will be different in Canada. It will be different even in our place. From village to village, it differs. One village will have something, next village will have something else. So it differs like that. Next, most individuals affected by these rules can participate in modifying these rules. See, the rules are not, hardbound or something. They will change with time to time. And it has to be a democratic process. All the members of the community must come together and decide. So, that is the direct democracy feature that is there. Then the rights of communities members to devise their own rules is now this is coming. Why is this coming? Is respected by external authorities. Now, this is the most important part, because you have the state and the market, and then you have this community which has formed its own rules. It has marked out its boundary and it has its own rules. Now, if a more powerful operator like the state and the market, they come in and interfere with this, then it's going to be difficult. So this is where we have had the most trouble. So 4 decades of fighting. So I said that I'll slowly tell you about what I have done. The innumerable occasions when I have gone to prison. Not only I, the people, we are all, because the state doesn't want us to have this kind of a situation where we are in control. And in India, actually, what is the constitutional framework is such that Adivasis, indigenous people, they have some special provisions where they can, in fact, they have legal provisions where they can, in fact, secure their community and prevent it from extrusion by the state and the market. But obviously, even the law is there on paper. Actually, the state or the market, they don't want to implement that. So when a community tries to do that, like when we try to do it, there is confrontation. So there's been the long history of confrontation, and this is throughout the world. It's not as if we are doing it. What we are doing is something unique. It's everywhere. Our thing is that we have managed to, in a small area of around 50, 60 villages, we have managed to secure our boundaries and we have prevented the state and the market from coming in. But that's all. The moment we try to expand, like later on, around this work has been going on since 1980s. 1980s. It's almost 4 decades. 4 decades that we have been working like this. And around we tried to expand this. And then there was a major confrontation around 2000. Where 4 of our colleagues were killed in police firing. I spent 2.5 months in jail, and then not only I, various other people were there. And then finally we came out. Anyway, that's the thing. So this is the most important part that Ostrom has said, that rights of the community members to devise their own rules is respected by external. If it is not, then you have to fight to make them respected. Otherwise, it's not going to succeed, whatever you're trying to do. Uh, uh, let's move this up. A system of monitoring members' behavior exists. The community members themselves undertake this monitoring. A graduated system of sanctions is used. Basically, you have to have some laws and to prevent somebody. This also comes up on the work we do. Somebody, becomes a renegade or becomes a acolyte of the state or market and tries to, tries to dismantle the system that is there of people protecting their own forests and doing their own work. So then you have to have some kind of a system in which you have sanctions, you can punish those people and all that. And it's everybody together decides that. This is also important. This 4 and 5 have to go together if you want to succeed. Community members have low cost conflict. This is also related with this. But if you have a conflict, then you resolve it within the community. You sit together. In India, it's called a panchayat, and everybody sits together and by consensus they try to do it. Don't go to a higher authority somewhere. Go to the state and police because they are not interested in protecting you. So they're basically they're going to create problems for you. Okay. So next, this is the last part. For common property resources that are parts of larger systems, appropriation, provision, monitoring, enforcement, conflict resolution, and governance activities are organized in multiple layers of nested enterprises. I mean, if you have not gone to that level in our area, because we have got restricted, nobody's the higher level authorities are not interested. So if you come to our area, if ever somebody of anybody who's listening who can come, when you're approaching our area of work, you will first pass through all barren hills. All hills are barren, no trees, no grass, nothing. And then when you enter our area, you will find it's all, the streams are flowing. There's a lot of forest and grass and everything. There's a distinct difference between, our areas and the areas that are outside from which you will approach our area. So the larger state and market and all these forces, and it's very difficult to, expand. So we are restricted to our own area. But if it does expand, if that kind of a situation does happen where the whole, a larger area, at least the whole state or something. In India, we have these 30 states different. We are in Madhya Pradesh, there's Gujarat, Rajasthan, like this. There are West Bengal, various other states are there. So if it at least goes to a state level or something, then this last point comes in, that it's all nested together, higher level and lower level and things like that. If there is a conflict between the two, then that has to be resolved and all these things. So these are the principles that Ostrom gave. She got a Nobel Prize. There's a lot of research on this. Once she came in, there's been a lot of research following this, and finally she got even though she's not an economist, she got, because it has a huge influence in ecological economics. There's a bunch of economics called ecological economics, where this is now become a Bible of whatever Ostrom has written, has become a Bible of ecological economics on which a lot of work goes on. So that is why I just put these in, that because you are all researchers, academics also, so you must know, most probably also. If you don't, then you must read up this. Okay, so now I come to these people that I work with. How now we have already seen Ostrom's principles. Now I'll show you that Adivasis, the indigenous people, traditionally they have that kind of a system. That Ostrom has, from analysis, found out. They were not read, or they are not analytical in the sense that we are, as PhD or whatever students and things like that. They don't have those tools, analytical tools, but intuitively, from living in that kind of a situation, close to nature and respecting nature, they have developed their own systems which are akin to what Ostrom has said. Okay, first, traditionally, these indigenous people have subsistence economy. They are not accumulative economy. Even if they are in agriculture, they do agriculture. They have customs in US. Some of these tribes that are there, they have this custom called potlatch, where the accumulated resources, accumulated surplus is distributed in the community. The same kind of systems are there among the Bhils also, in other Adivasi people in India also. They have these customs in which nobody will. So this class difference that take place in our societies, where some people start accumulating, and then they accumulate a lot, and so they have economic power over the other people, other who don't have that much. That thing is prevented through custom. And then they have, as I said, they are non-accumulative, and since they are non-accumulative, they don't have surpluses, no trade, so there's no numeracy also. So you need numeracy. Numeracy comes in when you have trade. You want to sell something to somebody and then take money from them. So that is not there. So that the basic economy itself is one that is egalitarian, and it is also conservant as far as nature, because it doesn't extract that much from nature. Then, because of this, because they don't have money, they live in communities. What I said, that has pooling, labor pooling customs, which I had said that we use them for conservation work or in agriculture and things. This is a very important thing, because they are not trading. They don't have surpluses. They don't trade. They don't have money traditionally. And now, of course, things have changed. So they live in small communities, and they are very tightly knit, and they have their own customs and rules and things, and conflict resolution. Everything takes place there. So that I have mentioned earlier, that social customs that ensure redistribution of the surplus to individual families among the community. So the surplus gets redistributed. Among the fields, they have this custom called indal, through which that is similar to potlatch, what I mentioned earlier. Then, because their resource bases are so important for them, they are dependent on those resource bases, the river, the streams, the forests, and the grasses, whatever. So they fiercely protect that. So this has been a traditional case in India also, whether it's US, Canada, everywhere. The Indians, they fiercely protect their thing. Of course, they lose out in the end, because they don't have the kind of firepower that the modern state and the economic power that the modern states and markets have. But this is a characteristic that so as you can see, this is similar to what, Ostrom has said. But this is there traditionally. This has been there for centuries together in all these indigenous communities. And they have this song and dance. This is they have their own entertainment. They don't need TV and this and that. Even now, when mobile, internet, and TV and everything has penetrated, still this community, these people that I work with, they have their own culture. They still, dance to their own songs and things like that. And of course, we have also our organization and various other Adivasi organizations. We have promoted this thing. We have done this. So, Bhil Adivasi culture is one that has withstood, that onslaught that is coming place. Of course, they have taken some things, like they have taken modern instruments that are the guitars and drums and things, various all these sound systems and things are there. But the lyrics and the tunes and everything, they are still the traditional tunes, and still dance and things. They still love to dance. So this is another aspect. They are independent of the mainstream market for the entertainment also, which we are. We have to go and see a serial or something and on TV or whatever. On now you have OTT and things like that. These guys, they don't need all these things. So as you see, this traditional Adivasi culture, indigenous culture, it has some very good points for communitarian action, because whatever community is very strong in that case. Even now, even after all these the marketization and the state coming in and things like that, and they have got educated also, but even then they retain this. So now I will just talk about two important principles of equitable communitarian development. If you want development to take place from the bottom up, then instead of top down as it is taking place now, to save both humanity and the ecology, then there are two principles that have to be followed. So I will these are not my principles, these are there in the literature. So I will talk about them. First is the subsidiarity principle. So I'll just read it out for you. This is straight from the net. I'm taking the definition of the subsidiarity principle. The central level of authority shall act only if and insofar as the objectives of the proposed action cannot be sufficiently achieved either at the regional or the local level, but can rather, by reason of the scale or effects of the proposed action, be better achieved at the central level. So this is something that has come out of the church, the Vatican. In fact, they were the first to come up with this subsidiarity principle. So this is for a situation which is the real situation now. I mean, we can talk about all these Adivasis, living in communities, small communities, this, that, and all. But That is not the situation. Now you have the state and the market globally controlling the whole world, whole of humanity, and the whole of the earth is controlled by them. Within that centralized system, now you have to promote subsidiarity. So there is the central system. So within that, those things that can be done best, like protecting forests, soil and water conservation, education at the local level, health at the local level. So protecting water and all these things, livelihoods that renewable energy, all these things actually they have to be and they need to be, because it differs from place to place. Within 20, 30 kilometers, conditions change. So nobody, so at the central level, what has been the bane of planning, I will come to that in the second point, is that, those people are incapable of designing a good system of governance and development for at the local level. That has to be decided by the people there. So this is the first principle, subsidiarity principle. You can give us net search and you'll find a huge enough amount of literature on this. And the second is that trickle up. This whole thing of in India, when we got independent in 1947, it was decided that we'll have a trickle down development. So they said that you make huge investments in making steel plants and uh, electric plants and all these kind of things. At the top, you make these investments, and that will trickle down to the bottom. Now that is idiotic. I mean, why will people at the top let some resources trickle down? If I am at the top of a system, and then some resources are given to me, and I'm told that you take whatever you want, and the rest you take a little, and the rest you should give to people at the bottom. That's never going to happen in most cases. People just so in India, or even now, it is the same thing. 70 years have elapsed, 75 years, in fact, 75 years have elapsed since independence, and we have had this same trickle down approach, which is totally idiotic. And and all these economists and politicians that were there, they went through this. And so even now we have. So this has to go. You can't have this kind of a situation. You have to have investments must be at the grassroots level. You have to take all those 8 to 9 points of collective restoration and restorative action that I had said. You have to invest in those things. They go there, and people there have to decide how to, implement that. So these are the two principles of equitable development. Without this, it's not possible. We are trying to do that, but we are of course marginal players. We don't have much of an impact. Now we have talked of collective action, but that collective action has to be gender sensitive. So I told you that according to some authors that have read, patriarchy is there for 100,000 years. But you can debate about that timeline, but you can't debate about the fact that patriarchy is a very serious problem throughout the world, even in Canada. In India, of course, it's a very serious problem, but even in Canada, everywhere this is there. So just saying collective action won't do. It has to be gender sensitive. So in the Indian context, since I'm talking about what we are doing in India, our actions, when we started initially, we found that women were getting sidelined in various ways. Their issues are not being addressed. So then slowly we corrected, and so now the way we work, there are some issues that we pay most attention to. So I'll just one by one I'll just talk about those. First is reproductive and sexual health. In India, women are not in control of their bodies. Most women, they're just producing babies. That's all. Even the government, the health program of the government is to ensure that babies are produced safely, and the women are healthy enough to produce those babies. That's all. That women have a life of their own and have various other problems, gynecological problems and all, that is not addressed in any way. It's not just there, they're absent. And so there's a serious problem. Most women are anemic. There are some surveys. We have a national family health survey which surveys this, and the data that comes out from it is horrible. As far as women are concerned, they're anemic. There are various other problems. They suffer from various problems, and there's a culture of silence. They can't talk about these things. First, you have to be able, because there's a taboo on all these things, menstrual hygiene and things like that. So women don't talk about them. If you don't talk, where will you get a solution? First of all, there is no solution there. But at least if you raise your voice, there might be some solution from somewhere. So this is one area where we work. We conduct our own camps and clinics and all that, make women aware. Actually, it's not very difficult. you can make women aware and give them some minimum service, then these problems go. But obviously, the whole system is such, it's all against women. They don't have livelihoods also. I'll come to that later. Then the equitable gender division of labor at home. This is a big problem in India. They do unpaid work. Women, most of the time, 50 to 60% of the women, they don't have any other work. They're just taking care of the house, producing babies and then taking care of those babies. And then later on, the in-laws, when they grow old, they have to take care of them and all this, cook food, wash clothes, this, that, and all these things. They don't have any life of their own. And even those women who are going out to work or somewhere, they have to do double work, unpaid work. If a lady is going out and working somewhere, even a upper class lady or somebody, she has to come back, or she employs somebody, some other woman to do that work. So basically, it's still with the women. And that is a tragedy here. Like that, if a man does this work, then he's supposed to be, a weak man. For instance, this layout, I live in a residential layout where basically everybody says that this guy, he is under the control of his wife. Because that is the kind of attitude that is there, masculinity and all that. So that's a big problem that is there. Even if a man wants to do it, he is going to be, the butt of ridicule of the whole society. Even women say that, this man is weak and things like that. This is another problem. The third is gender-based violence. This is a huge problem, serious problem here. And there is very little redressal of this. Actually, the state should come in, step in to, stop gender-based violence. But it doesn't. There is some laws, this, that, and all, no implementation. So this is a very serious issue. And it's going on. It's increasing, gender-based violence that is there. It's domestic violence, is there, rape and things, outside and inside. Both outside and inside the home, women are not safe. And property rights. This is the problem that has due to patriarchy. When property came in, the women were excluded from property rights. And there are laws now that women should be given property rights. They are not implemented. In fact, my wife Subhadra, she had to fight. She had to fight literally court cases and this and that. And finally, she's one of the few women who have got property rights, from the ancestral property rights in India. So this is another area where without these things, actually, women won't be able to participate. In fact, that is a problem. All these things combine in the end. In India, the labor force participation rate of women is 25%, just 25%, and it is coming down. 2000, the year 2000 is when the economy was liberalized. Before that, we had a economy that was sealed off from the global market. After that, it was opened up, and so the development took place, a huge amount of GDP growth and all that. But it was all unequal. So the resources got concentrated at the top, and at the bottom there's a huge amount of poverty. And there is something called a term that is, you must be aware of this term, feminization of poverty. I mean, the poverty takes place, and then suppose there's a job, whatever jobs are there, they are there for the men, and the women get kicked out. And then all these four things that I've told you about, all these combined together to push women out of the job market. So this is a serious problem. In 2000, the workforce participation rate of women was 33% in India, and now after 20 years, it's down to 25%. So a huge feminization of poverty is taking place in India. So this is another problem that is there. So so in our work, what we do is we try to ensure this. All these things we are working, and women have to come up as equal partners. Whatever decisions are to be taken, work is to be done, everything. And after that, you can have community participation, whatever design, that subsidiarity principle and pickle up and all that part comes into this last part. That everything, whatever development programs are there, they have to be, first of all, data collection is very poor in this country. Unless you have data, how are you going to plan for something? So that data collection, because it's all centralized. And so they collect only that data that they want for their centralized development. If you want communitarian development from below, then you have to do data collection at that level, and that has to be done by the people themselves. The process of data collection itself is educating. You learn a lot from that. Then after that, you collect the data, then you design what you want to do. You decide what you, that also at that level, and then implementation. And this is standard principle. Only thing, this gender part has to come into this. All these things that we must be at every point. We must ensure that women are equal partners in whatever taking place. They're agents in development, not just receivers of development.